and welcome in to another fantastic edition of the EPLAY Numbers Tell Your Story podcast. I am Jamie Horton with you as always, and pleased to be joined in just a moment by a man who's been doing this in this space for a very, very long time. We're very excited to have him. Tried to get him last week, but man, we've got coronavirus going on. We've got storms in Houston last week, and so we had some connectivity issues. But BJ Johnson joins us today. BJ has been an NBA personnel scout for the Houston Rockets for 26 years. He's also been heavily involved with Basketball Beyond Borders. We're so pleased to have him with us today. But BJ, first of all, how are things down in Houston right now? How are you and your family dealing with COVID-19? And how are you and the Houston Rockets dealing with it right now?
Well, Jamie, we everything is good. Blessed to be healthy. Sad that this pandemic has kind of rocked us a little bit, but, we all got to do what we got to do.
Again, visiting with BJ Johnson, Houston Rockets personnel scout. I've been with him for 26 years. Now, BJ, just so you know, this is we do a lot about analytics over here at EPLAY, and I know that analytics is a very important part of what goes on down there in Houston with the Rockets as well. I want to kind of talk about all the way back to the beginning, right?
You're breaking up a little bit.
Okay. Oh, man. We're having more connectivity issues. If you can hear me, can you hear me now?
There you go. You're breaking up a little bit, Jamie. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Well, it sounds like you're playing the piano when you talk.
Well, hopefully it's pretty enough to where you can make out what I'm trying to tell you. So what I wanted to do, BJ, is I wanted to talk about kind of the evolution of scouting in the NBA from your time way back, I guess, in 1994 with the Houston Rockets and sort of the evolution. So let's start at the beginning. What was it like being an NBA personnel scout 26 years ago?
Yeah, so Jamie, I started, basically my interview was, they kind of seeked me out a little bit just from my past stuff and trying out with the Rockets and having a relationship with the guys, Carl Dawson, Rudy T, Robert Barr. In those heydays, that's when the Rockets were really good. Never thought I'd be a scout. They asked me what I thought about it. So I was like, yeah, I like to try it. So here I am 26 years later.
So you've kind of seen obviously there's been this evolution in terms of analytics and how they're applied into scouting and coaching and roster building and all that sort of thing. When did that sort of become introduced in terms of the way that people scout players?
Well, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, Daryl came and kind of took over the team. But before then, we would do a bunch of numbers with some of our coaches and guys that we did it before. We just didn't call it analytics. We had, true shooting percentages and all this kind of stuff. And our guys, Rudy and CD, they were obviously coaches and players before, and they were pretty adept to, rating players and doing the whole nine. And so we always did a little bit of numbers, just didn't really call it analytics until Daryl came on the set.
How are they sort of applied now in terms of scouting, right? I mean, we always talk about the naked eye, what you can see, and then referring to the numbers to see if numbers sort of back up what it is that you see. What is the application now in terms of scouting using the number variable with the physical attributes?
Well, the funny thing is I'm probably more of a visual, old school kind of guy because that's how I truly learn. The analytics part is you can use those numbers to kind of prove what you're looking at, and then sometimes it shows you what you really don't see with the naked eye. So it's been a big acquisition into scouting as now, and it's a really good piece of the puzzle. I think some people maybe go a little bit overboard, maybe, but I think we made some really nice adjustments in Houston and how we make it work. We have really good staffs, and we just kind of keep the mix going really well. But the analytics can just show you some stuff that maybe you see, maybe you don't see, and then you pull up the numbers. You're like, okay, this is what I'm truly looking at, and that helps a lot. That truly helps a lot.
In terms of the naked eye portion of it, because obviously I think that's one thing, BJ, that never goes away. You can't just
Right.
even for us at EPLAY, we talk about this. You can't strictly go off numbers that you see. You got to be able to get an eye for athleticism and movement and character and all those other things. So that's sort of, I don't think that's something that ever really goes away. But as a personnel
Well, Jamie,
scout, go ahead.
Jamie, that's more of my specialty because that's how I learned before the numbers came in. How you walk, how you talk, how you move, attitude, look, coaching, in every position, footwork, your shooting stroke, uh, anything physically wrong with you. Is funny you say that because I just have the ability to just look at stuff and look at all that stuff. If you ever sit beside me in a game and people will be like, how do you see all that stuff? And I was like, man, it's just something that is innate for me. And I can always tell when somebody's hurt, the ankle, the hip or something. And to me, the naked eye, you have to get a feel. You have to see true size. And I have to be in a gym, Jamie, so I can see the movement and what's actually really going on. And I'm better if I'm in the gym, even when I'm on video. I have to see the guy live first before I even start getting to the video because, video is funny. You start honing in on stuff and it can trick you sometimes.
In terms of the evolution now of the like, there's still a big faction of folks who don't like analytics, if you will, or don't appreciate them, or don't know enough about them. Would you say that I'm learning from you, BJ? Would you say that there are still? I want to play devil's advocate for a moment. Would you say that there are still some? What are the issues with analytics in terms of their application in scouting?
Well, the whole thing about scouting is, you have an analytics department, and they usually rate players just by the numbers. A lot of those guys don't go see guys, and then when they are in the gym, they don't really have a lot of feel for what's going on. So that's probably some of the misconception of how that works, because some scouts who've been scouting for a really long time, we can just walk in the gym and look at a guy and say, okay, he's a pro, he's this, he's that, he's this, he's that. Sometimes analytics, don't like what you're doing. And even if some of these young guys have bad games, they go through, some bad stretches, especially all the, the young freshmen we have. And, but I just don't think analytics supersedes talent, sort of, visual talent. That's the whole thing.
Again,
and you really have to be, smart enough. Say that again.
No, I think I was interrupting you on accident. Oh no, we got another connection problem. Please tell me we're all right. You hear me again? You okay?
No, we're good. I can hear you.
Good. All right, good. Okay, cool. Stay right there. Let me ask you this. How often do those analytics department guys get some of it right before you guys ever see a player? How often do the analytics match up with what you see physically?
Well, with the draft and stuff, we just probably been ahead of the curve a little bit in analytics. So I think what we have with the Houston organization right now, what we didn't build since Darryl been here is we have a trust factor of scouts seeing the guys, adding analytics. We kind of put it all together, and just to make sure we, seeing the right thing or doing the right thing. I think a lot of teams, a lot of people, when they starting off early, and analytics guys, you if this is your niche, this is your niche. You gotta go for what you know. Don't think they're always right, but sometimes visually you can be wrong also. So you just have to have a staff of people that kind of believe in each other. But we've been together for a long time, so that makes us a little different.
So
I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but to me, that's the difference from when I hear other people talking and then when I deal with us.
No, you're absolutely answering my question. Again, visiting with BJ Johnson. He's a 26-year NBA personnel scout for the Houston Rockets. Also did some work for Basketball Without Borders. We'll talk about that here in just a moment. No, I think it's an awesome kind of contrast, and I think there's a marriage there, BJ. And I think you obviously have seen this as you've watched the evolution of the NBA for nearly 3 decades, from the way that
Yes.
athletes are, from the way athletes are
Yeah.
trained, from the way they're brought up, to the way coaching has changed, even to officiating. So I think is a marriage there. Do you think that it is a sort of a space now where analytics and naked eye scouting are sort of coming together a little smoother now? Is it being more accepted?
Yeah. I think it's definitely being a little bit more accepted. A lot of old school guys and a lot of coaches and a lot of guys like that, stuff that you learned 20, 30 years ago is just hard sometimes, to look at analytics and say this is right, this is wrong. Because, usually when you've been playing and coaching for so long, you just have a certain kind of feel that you just want to kind of go with. But for us, I think the marriage for us for analytics has gotten so much better. It was a little hard for me at first, but going through all these drafts and all this stuff with our Daryl and our guys, and we didn't tweaked a few things and came up with some different stuff. Uh, I think our marriage is pretty good now, and it really works for us a lot. It really
BJ,
does.
BJ, I know you've watched a lot of basketball. You've seen a lot of basketball players and a lot of talent in your near 3 decades there with the Houston Rockets organization. Is there one player in
Yeah.
particular? I know there's a lot that probably stand out, but is there one guy in particular that you looked at and you went, that guy, like with just the naked eye scouting, that you go, okay, there's no way he can not be a great basketball player?
They have a running joke with me, uh, and this guy ended up being one of the greatest guys ever. But the first time I saw LeBron James, he was going into the 10th grade. So during that time we could watch high school. So we were out in Vegas, at So this guy's name was all over the place, and you got to see this guy, you got to see this guy. And back then, younger guys, you never know about the hit or miss. Can you get through all the craziness? So I go in the gym, and it's a friend of mine, Lance Blanks, and a whole bunch of all kind of scouts. We all sitting there looking at this guy. So I see this guy for like the first 3 minutes, and I'm like, oh my God. I remember Lance and I looking at each other at the time. He was working for San Antonio, I think. I remember looking at this guy, and I'm like, oh my God. So I go back to our meeting. Back in those days, our scouting and our coaching stuff wasn't separate. Rudy T and CD did a great job of, we had a really, really, really together staff, which is pretty unbelievable. I go back. I was so excited, Jamie. I was so excited that they asked me, "Who did you see?" And I just went crazy. I was like, "Man, this guy." I just saw a guy going into the 10th grade that can start for the Rockets. He can do stuff that nobody on our team can do, and he's big and he's fast. And I was like, he's a cross between Michael and Magic. I mean, he's athletic like Michael, and he passes like Magic. And his IQ and his whole thing for the game is like unbelievable. I can't believe I was looking at a kid. So they laughed and they joked, and I get on the phone and I call one of my buddies who's been a long time high school coach that we played basketball together. I called Mickey. I said, Mickey, I want you to remember this name, because if he gets through all the crazy madness of how this stuff really works, he's going to be incredible. This guy's incredible. I was like, and I used to always say to those guys, LeBron James. So it was Rudy used to tell me all the time. He used to just bring it up in a meeting just to see me get excited. And and during that time, I don't know if a lot of scouts and a lot of people really believed in how good he was, because they were worried about his shot and this and that. Guys are a little funny, but man, I was so overwhelmed. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, just totally unbelievable.
In terms of what the way that
They still tease me to this day. They still tease me to this day
What do they say? Like,
about
oh yeah, obviously, yeah, LeBron can play or whatever. Was that what
no,
the
no,
joke?
no, no. They don't say that. They just no. They laugh at me like, man, I remember that day you came in. You was talking about this kid, and none of us believed you because he was in the 10th grade. He's a high school kid. No way he's gonna be good as a pro and da da da. They tease me all the time. It's pretty wild.
So in 10th grade, LeBron was what, 6'6", 6'7"? I mean, what did he ended up?
Yeah, he was going into the 10th grade, which was crazy. It was the
Oh
summer.
wow,
Oh, it was crazy. It was unbelievable.
it's certainly generational when you see something like that. A kid that probably could have done anything. He probably would have been a really great wide receiver. It's one of the things that you always hear about LeBron is that he could have been a great NFL player as well. He probably could have done anything. To be honest with you, is that the most
And
physically
Jamie, my
gifted athlete
first,
we've ever seen?
definitely one of them for sure. With size and power, I mean, he's like the perfect machine, sort of. I mean, he can. I tell people this: he could play all five positions and be an all-star at every position. I don't think we ever had guys like that before.
BJ, you were about to tell me something there before I mentioned that. What were you about to tell me?
I actually slipped my mind, but I'll get back
Don't
to
worry.
it.
We can get back to it, man. I wanted to talk to you about basketball without borders while we had a chance. Your involvement with
Oh
basketball.
man. Oof.
I think that's first
Oh,
of all, it's amazing how the game has become so global, right? I mean, but the basketball without borders, the initiative that you were and the program that you've been a part of. I want to talk about that. So how'd you get started, and how long have you been a part of that?
well, so I guess I'm going on my 15th year or so, or something like that. So obviously, dealing with Hakeem Olajuwon here for so many years, and his brothers, and it's a big Nigerian population in Houston for sure. And this for me, I was always a basketball junkie. Loved to teach. I just really love the game a lot. Um, so they were starting this. The Kimbe and them were starting this project over in Africa where they were trying to get people to come and teach these kids. And when we first started, it was it was so green. It's just hard to explain. Uh, just a bunch of tall kids who probably never played structured basketball in their life. Just athletic, could jump. It was so crazy, Jamie. Some of the kids, when we would train them, they would catch cramps. They never had a cramp before. I mean, it was just that green. So the people from the NBA and guys on our staff, Melvin and Dennis and a whole bunch of us, they were all searching for people to come. So somehow we ended up getting invited, and sometimes four or five of us went from the same team because they couldn't get really nobody to come because everybody was nervous, scared, worried about Africa, worried about AIDS, and all kind of stuff. Just unknown stuff. So we started this adventure, man, and it's been so unbelievable, Jamie. For me, it's probably one of the proudest things that I've probably done in basketball is to see the growth. If you can imagine 15, 16 years ago, where we started Basketball Without Borders, and I think now we have 8, 9, 10 pros from the program. It is totally unbelievable because those guys, they didn't even have leagues. They didn't have, they just, some of the guys, they used to just look at the guys, be walking down the street, and they'd be like, come on, let's go play basketball stuff. But people obviously don't believe that, but that's a true story. It's pretty true.
How
But,
much raw talent did you
Amadou,
see there?
oh my God, it was so raw. It was incredible. Yeah, I mean, it was incredible. But obviously, the Kimbe, and Dream, and all those guys, I mean, uh, you know, their stories were unbelievable. And I think they just thought that it has to be more people that can actually do this since we did this before. The Kimbe is one unbelievable person who I think this was sort of his vision. And Kim Mahoney, who's a NBA senior exec, she's the one who got behind it and pushed. It's just unbelievable that in my lifetime that we've actually accomplished something on another continent that has grown so prosperous. Jamie, it's pretty unbelievable.
Getting visiting.
Even that when I see the guys, even when I see the guys, you know, I I think I feel like some kind of godfather or some kind of connection to these guys, because all those guys when they were so young and they leave home and they come over here and they can't speak the language and they go to college, and I mean it's pretty powerful, Jamie. It's pretty powerful. I really, I'm still going, still love to teach, but it's so different now because we have guard play and you can run plays, and it's just amazing, man. I don't know anybody that you talk to, Jamie, that's been involved in basketball without borders on any continent. They would probably have the same thing to say. It's pretty awesome.
Again, visiting here with BJ Johnson. He's been an NBA personnel scout for the Houston Rockets for 26 years. As a matter of fact, your first year there was the second year of Clutch City, right? The second of the back-to-back championships there down in Houston.
Yeah, man. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we'll get to. I
It's,
want
it's
to talk about that here in just a moment, but I did want to ask you this in terms of basketball without borders, but also just the evolution of basketball around the globe. The amount of talent that you've seen internationally throughout your career, and how much that talent internationally has sort of gotten better
oh my
throughout
God.
the generations and throughout the decades. I mean, because obviously, in a lot of areas, the international player has been able to make a lot of strides in the NBA. Some of the top name players now in today's games, from the Giannis's of the world to Luka Doncic, etc.
Well, Jamie, just in my 25, 26 years of seeing this game evolve, uh, the game is so different now. Uh, you know, David Stern had a unbelievable vision, and obviously, I don't think people think about this, Jamie. But you being a basketball guy, we had to change a whole lot of rules to the game in order to make this a worldwide and the way it is right now. Uh, you know, Back in those heydays when Boston and all, you had to had a center to be really good because the game was incredibly physical. I mean, you had tough, uh, no spot shots. I mean, you just had to be, and I mean that the game was so physical back then, Jamie. It was unbelievable. And now the game, though, you can't touch nobody. The guards get to go anywhere they want to. It's the game is just different. It's a skill game and a shooter's game. And of course, we know all the foreign guys for all these years, their skill work has been really good because they don't have colleges and they don't do all that kind of stuff. They just go from young kids right into a program, and where they training 3 or 4 times a day, and they do an unbelievable job with skill. But defense, toughness, and all that kind of stuff, they had to get really acclimated to that. But the game has grown so much, Jamie. It's pretty unbelievable. And even I never thought guys would end up making $100 million, because that's something you probably just never dream of. That was when 20 some years ago, when I remember Ralph Sampson, he was a great friend of mine. He was the first pick in the draft. He made $1.4 million, and they thought that was like a great big deal. And just guys now, 250 million, the amount of money guys making right now, man. But it's because the growth of the game, and it's completely worldwide, and you know, I like it. I like it. It's pretty awesome. And basketball is addictive, man. It's one of them addictive sports.
Oh man, I'm telling you right now. I know you're going through withdrawals, but I am, because this is playoff time. This is playoff time. It's time to go postseason,
Yeah.
and there's nothing happening. So it's been, man. I tell you, my withdrawals of basketball have all been dumped into video games for the most part, and Twitter, but it's definitely addicting. Again, BJ Johnson with us, 26-year veteran as an NBA personnel scout for the Houston Rockets. I want to talk about that. Let's go back to that. Right now, the big kind of talk around basketball, BJ, is the Last Dance documentary on ESPN about that last
Ooh.
season, that 97-98 Chicago Bulls team. Your first year with the Rockets was that 94 was the second year, the back-to-back Clutch City team. That was against the Knicks, right? The
Yes.
first year was the Magic when Akeem
Yes.
Olajuwon helped school Shaquille O'Neal into stardom later on. and then obviously
Yes.
the Knicks team in the year that you started there. Talk about that. You come into the NBA as a personnel scout with the Houston Rockets, and you win a championship, and then you think, oh man, this happens every year now, right?
Well, the funny thing, if you know me, I've been a basketball guy like my entire life. I mean, I just somebody who just adored the game. I just really love the game a lot. And for me to get a job with the Rockets and win the title the first year it's just been it's just like a blessing. It was unbelievable. And obviously it was the first time Houston had won a championship, and it was just the second time, but it was just a unbelievable time to be here. I feel like I was just in the right place at the right time in life. It was pretty awesome, man. That's all. I mean, it's crazy. And obviously we think about those moments all the time. And obviously I'm probably one of the guys on our staff that actually been through a championship year where, when you win a championship, man, it's so intoxicating, man. It's just unbelievable, man. But it's so hard to do. People don't have no idea how hard it is. A lot of things got to go right.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, I think one of the questions, I've seen this a few times on Twitter, when people talk about this documentary that's happening right now, and they talk about Jordan retiring after the '93 one, and then that 2 year gap before he come back, and then they win three more. The argument is,
Yeah,
had he stuck around and that team stayed together, would they have won 8 in a row? What do you think?
yeah.
Obvi-
I
ob-
don't. It would. I tell you right now. Even and actually, Michael's. Actually, I've been knowing Mike and some of those guys. I grew up with those guys for a long time, and Michael probably his own self. Probably he told me out his own mouth one day that we would consistently beat those guys. We only played it once or twice. I mean, during those years and during Mike's heyday, we were the only team that could actually beat those guys because obviously we had Dream.
mhm.
And we Michael talked about that, and he was like, the only people I probably really didn't want to face is the Houston Rocks because y'all had Dream was so dominant, it was crazy. It was just crazy, and Chicago just didn't really have no centers or no fives. And I don't know if you know this, Jamie. People don't realize back in those days you couldn't double team until the guy touched the ball. So Dream, by the time Dream touched the ball, Scotty and Michael, which was so good at rotating, but by the time they tried to rotate, it was over with. He'd already
Mhm.
scored. So we had it. We just had a team, and then Vernon Maxwell would guard him, and we
Mhm.
would never double team him. So, but we were one of the teams that could actually score. Like we just had a guy that could score and defend like those guys. I mean, Dream was unbelievable. I mean, he was. Yeah, I ain't got to tell you. He
Oh
he was
no.
just unbelievable. So
So he's one of my like. So this is the thing, right? I don't. It's not personal. I grew up in the Fort Worth area, so the Dallas Mavericks have been my team since I was a kid, right? That's a nice rivalry we
yeah,
have. But Mavs
yeah,
fans might be upset with me when I say like 3 of my all-time favorite players were Houston Rockets: Olajuwon, Mario Elie, and Otis Thorpe. Those were 3 of my all-time favorite players, and Otis Thorpe's one of those guys to me that still translates in today's game. You give me 14 and 9 from that
yeah.
4 position. That I mean, consistently, that was one of my favorite all-time players was Otis Thorpe. So I liked those teams in the mid 90s with the Rockets. I have to admit that. So all my Mavs people don't give me too much trouble for that. But I appreciated what that team, and I agree with you because guys like Vernon Maxwell, you got those junkyard dogs. You got those guys who could mucky it up for you. You had a point guard, obviously, the way that Kenny and then Sam Cassell was obviously a guy that was, on the come up as a young person. That I
Yep.
thought that team was the best put together team in basketball at that time.
Well, Jamie, the good thing about all those guys you talk about, I'm friends with all those guys, and obviously I grew up right in the middle of all this stuff. And those guys. One guy I got to give some credit to is, obviously Rudy T was our coach, and Rudy T was like an unbelievable person. He could coach guys that other teams really couldn't coach, and he just had a way with people that that he could get guys together, and he was just one of those guys. If you met this guy today, he'd be one of those guys that you'd be like, man, he's the most normal person ever. But he's just one of those kind of personalities that we actually needed back in those times to win a championship, man. You know, because coaching is a hard, it's a truly hard job. So, and you know, and that year, I don't know if you remember, my second year is, you know, Vernon left the team because, you know, we acquired Clyde, and Vernon didn't really want to play behind Clyde, and you know, he just had some issues with that. But you know, we got Clyde for that second year and won that title, man. It was pretty unbelievable, man. It was incredible. It was pretty incredible, man.
It was
So
definitely. I
you
mean,
know,
I'm not saying it's an upgrade, but it's certainly a different kind of skill there with Clyde over Vernon.
oh man, it was even with both of them. I mean,
Man,
if you could, you know, if Vernon would have allowed us to use him also as a double threat, it would have been, you know, it was pretty awesome anyway. But back in those days, you know, you had to go kind of like inside out. Uh, these days, you outside in because everybody's shooting threes and you can't touch nobody. But it was, man, I learned a lot, man. It was pretty awesome. And I tell you, man, winning the championship, man, woo, Lord, I don't even know, man, how to describe it. I guess you went through the one up in Dallas. You know how it is.
yeah.
It's just so intoxicating. It's unbelievable, man.
And it feels like it wasn't that long ago, but it was a long time ago.
Oh man,
Yeah.
it's hey, you know what? When I my first year, obviously, I get a ring the first year. I'm thinking it's gonna happen 4 or 5 times in my lifetime. I didn't realize it was gonna take a whole nother lifetime to get one.
Yes, so I'm a Dallas
But the
Cowboys
game has
fan too.
changed.
So I know what you're saying. Like my first foray into Dallas Cowboys fandom was when I was a kid, and so they're winning titles in the early '90s. You know, '92 and '93, and then '95. And I'm thinking, this just happens every year, and then there you go. It's never happened again for me. So I'm
Hey,
getting
Jamie, I
and
hate
I'm
to tell
getting
you, but
old.
I hate to tell you, but I'm a Pittsburgh Phillips fan.
Well,
So
you know,
you
nothing
had a lot of
personal,
heartbreak.
BJ. It's not personal, man. See, you know what though? I have this argument. My dad would probably be my dad, who's those '70s Cowboys and Steelers rivalries. He would probably have a lot more
Yes,
ill feelings towards the Steelers than I do.
yes, he
For
would.
me, for me, it's teams like the Eagles and the 49ers and
Oh
the
yeah,
Green
for
Bay
sure.
Packers. You know
Yes,
those sorts of
yeah, for
rivalries.
sure.
But Pittsburgh, I love. I wish we played the Steelers every year. Those are always fun games for sure.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Well, one of my
Well,
dear friends that passed away, Moses Malone, was a diehard Dallas Cowboy fan. Every time it comes up, man, I just have to think about Moses. He was such a diehard Dallas fan. It was unbelievable, man. It was so unbelievable. It's
again, visit
crazy.
again visiting
I
here. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think about him. Anytime somebody says the Cowboys, man, he was a special guy, unbelievable basketball guy. But man, he loved the Dallas Cowboys. Oh,
BJ Johnson with us here, 26-year NBA personnel scout for the Houston Rockets, visiting with us on the EPLAY Numbers Tell Your Story podcast. Before we let you go, BJ, I think we've covered a lot of stuff here, man. But I like hearing good basketball stories, things where we kind of go behind the scenes a little bit, things that you could tell me publicly that are okay, that may be somewhat known, but are a little bit more of a deep dive, things that you could get away with and not get in trouble. Do you have any of those kind of stories that you could tell us from your time with the Houston Rockets and in the NBA?
well, one of the other stories that I was talking about earlier is my one of my first scouting trips. Uh, when I first started, I go see Kevin Garnett. So, you know, here's this high school kid. Obviously, back then, you know, we didn't have a lot of social media and none of that kind of stuff. But obviously, he had some issues in South Carolina, and then he ended up in Chicago. And back in them days, you know, we just, you know, you had to do a lot of stuff, word of mouth on the phone, all that kind of, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I, it's two other scouts, uh, guy from Portland and maybe a guy from the Bulls or somewhere. So we go to Chicago, and during that time, you know, it was pretty tough in Chicago. You know, times were pretty hard. A lot of people getting killed and shot. So it was a 3 o'clock game, and we go to this high school. So when we walk in the door, they have these gates with locks on them where they got all the halls on lockdown. and they had to have the game in the daytime because it was too dangerous at night. So, and this is like one of my early first scouting trips, and I go in the building, and I'm like, oh Lord, what in the world is going on? If something happened, can we get out of here? So anyway, we go. They escort us to the back, and we see, and it's Kevin Garnett. He's playing back there. Him and Ronnie Fields. And I'm watching this guy. So doing my report after I see him playing, I go back, and at the time, Bob Weinhauer was one of our was our GM. And I say, Bob, I just seen a kid. If he was in college, he would be the first pick in the draft. And of course, Bob gave me the crazy look. I was like, Bob, he can do stuff that I ain't seen nobody in college do. I'm just saying, it's unbelievable. So that's one of my early stories of watching those guys, man. But it was a lot of fun, and back in those days, even Yao Ming. I remember we were in back in those days. Utah Jazz had a summer league, so we used to play in the summer league out there. So Carl Dawson calls us up and is like, B, you in Utah? I need you to go to Portland. I need you to see the big Chinese kid. He's over here and he's practicing up in Portland, and I want you to go see him. But by that time, the world's gotten a little bit better with social media, whatever. But the Chinese national team was still kind of, everybody just couldn't walk up on them and do a whole lot of stuff. So I fly to Portland and I go in the gym and I see Yao Ming. And first of all, it was Portland's old practice facility. And for respect, you couldn't get on the floor where they were practicing because, it would disrespect the coaches or whatever. So we had to stand like on the other court and like kind of look through the nets just to watch this kid. So he's in the drill. He's on like a 3-man weave drill going down the middle, and he's so big and he's passing the ball and he's doing all this. And I'm like, oh my God, this big dude can really handle the ball, man. I was like shocked. So anyway, we leave. I watch him. There's a couple other scouts in there. We just got lucky and got there. So we ended up taking that dude in the first pick. It was pretty crazy. And I remember Rudy and CD calling me. It's like, BJ, if you had to take the guy for the first pick, would you do it? I was like, I would do it. Because by that time, we were losing Dream. And obviously, Houston had a bunch of unbelievable centers. But, he was a little slow and a little methodical, but he was so big. And he had so much skill. And he could shoot the ball so well. I was like, this dude, he got to be able to do it, man. It was pretty crazy. But he was a young kid, man. He was young, but he was so huge. And I don't know if you've ever seen Yao in person, but that was, he's probably like one of the largest human beings you ever see, man. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
but he was pretty nimble. So
I got to see him during some playoff games against the Mavs in the early 2000s. I was there for that 2-0 Houston Rocket getting up on the Mavs there in that 7-game series. Yao was one of those guys, BJ, that had his body not failed him, I think would have been right up there with the Shaqs of the world in terms of most dominant at their position of all time. That guy was, when he was healthy, when he was right. I don't know if there was. I think there was, other him and Shaq 1A 1B. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
Shaq
was
there you are.
Just athletically. Shaq was athletically, Shaq was just a freak. But skill-wise, Yao Ming was so skilled. He could really shoot the ball. Had an unbelievable touch for such a big guy. And then the other thing is, it's like Shaq. I mean, it's rarely you see Shaq rarely sees a guy bigger than him, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, for sure.
So we used to laugh. There used to be some unbelievable battles.
BJ, if I can ask you this, I don't know how much of this you can divulge to me or to the folks that are watching, but where are we right now in terms of the NBA, and what's the next steps that folks are taking here with the potential of NBA basketball? I mean, we got the pre-draft. What's the pre-draft process right now with this virus that's going on?
Well, just to be honest with you, Jamie, we don't really know. I mean, every week we on calls, the commissioners, talking to our GMs and people, and basically we kind of like everybody else. Nobody's ever been through this before, Jamie. So I think all of us are searching for the right answers. And as of this moment, they're gonna open up some practice facilities. Uh, with some NBA teams. I don't think it's mandatory for guys to come. But we just still dealing with the virus, man, like everybody else. So, I mean, I wish I had an answer for you, but obviously we get on calls every week and we all ask each other the same question. And now it's going on 7, 8 weeks where we've been home right now, and we just, everybody's probably dying to get to work. We've been doing a lot of Zoom interviews. That's the only thing we can actually do right now, Jamie, with the draft picks. And it's just weird. It's weird for them because they didn't even finish the NCAA. They didn't get to play in the big tournaments. Might not have a combine. I mean, because we don't really know a time limit for the NBA to start. Get this process going again, so people can be safe. So it's a very very different feel this year. So, but fortunately, like everybody else, everybody has to deal with the same thing. Uh, Jamie. So, we'll figure it out when the time comes. But, I don't really have a definite answer for you because it's just not none yet.
Well, let me ask you this, BJ, as a guy representing an analytics company, is this maybe an opportunity or a time to shine for some of these analytics guys, right? Since we can't go see basketball, we can't
Yes,
really see anything beyond film. Is this the time for them to shine?
yes, yes, it is. And the other thing is, it's just time for you to, get in there and do a lot of work and do some other stuff. And one thing about the analytics, I mean, it's still kind of like some of the cutting edge, and people still figuring out this and still figuring out that with certain stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's right now. That's a big piece of the puzzle for scouting. And the other thing is because you can't bring nobody in and you can't physically see nobody. So yes, for sure,
All right,
for
perfect.
sure.
I hope all my guys are listening to that. All right, so it's our time to shine, right? This
So
is
the question for you is, what got you into analytics?
Man, it's a number of things, right? So I think it's good as a basketball fan, I played a little bit of sports and stuff like this, but I think it's never a bad thing to try and get an edge, right? To get any kind of edge or any kind of advantage that you can
Yeah,
within the rules, right? So what got me
right.
into it was actually it was Charles Barkley, right? Some of the things Charles Barkley used to talk about analytics, right? I've always kind of liked him and paid attention to him. But then when you had these guys that were high profile players and athletes who had great careers, both with the naked eye and analytically, who don't really believe in it or don't necessarily understand the top to bottom as to how it's applied when it comes to improving your game individually, improving your team as a when it comes to roster building, scouting, whatever the case may be. So for me, it was sort of again, I love this word, evolution of the way the game was sort of changing, right? The trends that you would see in the game, whereas now you see a lot more 3-pointers, right? More possessions equals more shots, more opportunities offensively. If I shoot a three at a 38%. Then I still, it's still one more point than a normal 2-pointer, right? So if I can get more opportunities to chunk up a lot of shots and shoot a lot of threes, and I'm good at it or efficient at it, I can win a lot more games that way. So you've kind of seen those trends from the teams, right? From Golden State, for example, or something. But as the game sort of changed, and you had the opportunity as a fan to, I don't know, argue your points a little bit more about why you thought specific players were better than player X or player Y or player Z. That's sort
Well,
of what interests me.
well, Jamie, the thing about analytics, Jamie, the great players like Charles and Michael and all of this, just to be honest, they don't really have to worry about analytics
No,
because they just that good.
and the numbers bear that out too.
They can
That's the
they can just
thing. The
exactly
analytics tell you
exactly,
the
and they
same
just do
thing.
they do stuff naturally that everybody just can't do. So the analytics is a really big part find the mediocre guys and some of the role player guys. It's I think it's big on doing that. To me, great. I always say this. Sounds kind of crazy, but you gotta have a number so you can have some analytics. But that means you got to be out there doing something, playing. You got to play.
And the more that we have, the more
So
data that we
that's
have, the
just
easier it is for us to kind of tell a story about what kind of player you are. And that's from the numbers aspect of it, of course. But that never discounts the naked eye problem.
yes,
We just want a
exactly.
seat at the table, BJ. That's all.
And one thing I think it does do is, and I think a lot of coaches and a lot of people had a hard time is when you do all these analytics and you can put numbers together. It actually it helps you sort of develop your team and show you what you really need, what you really lacking, and what really works. And that's a big aspect of analytics also. So it can show you a lot of stuff. The numbers can definitely show you a lot of stuff, and you're winning and you're losing for sure. It'll tell you why you're doing this and why you're doing that. That's for sure. But just the numbers. So, but the problem with great guys, with only thing analytics can't do, Jamie, is you can't judge heart,
Mm-hmm. No,
can't judge
for sure.
toughness, can't judge heart. That's the only thing that it can't do, and that's the thing that probably separates the great guys from like the normal guys.
Absolutely, man. This has been fun, BJ. I want to do this again sometime. Maybe I can. I tell you what, offline, I'm going to hit you up and be like, "Hey, some of your friends, maybe we can talk, and they can come on, and we can talk to them as well." I'd love to talk to some of your friends within the league. What do you think? Are
Yeah,
we
man,
for?
I got some guys I got some guys that I work with that are pretty good analytic guys, and I know a lot of those guys, and they know way more about analytics than I do. Obviously, one of our dear friends is John Cho.
Oh, you got a John Cho
He
story. This is
he's
great. I'm listening.
no, he's just one of those kind of guys that John is one of those guys that he's probably smarter than people realize, but he's always sort of behind the scenes and quiet and whatever. But his knowledge base for basketball and analytics together is because he been through it all. He started a long time ago also, so he didn't see the evolution and worked under some really good coaches. So he has an unbelievable feel for all this stuff, man. It's crazy. I mean, his video work, all his stuff, man. He's one of my favorite human beings. He's such a unbelievable guy, man. So he's I would like to hear his podcast when it comes on for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to get him on.
Now,
John's a little shy. I don't know if it's shyness. We got to kind of figure
yeah,
out
he's quiet.
an entire platform for him. But no, you're exactly right. From the time that I've met John, which has been, yeah, almost a year now. John came on with us, I guess, or was a guy that I kind of got introduced to almost a year ago. And ever since I've met John,
Yeah, he's
he's one of the greatest guys I know for sure. I can call him anytime I want if I have questions. He's got answers. They may not always be the answer that I want, but it's John, and John has a way of delivering things to you as well. He's a unique person, man, and so I'm glad that we've all been blessed with the privilege of knowing John Cho for sure.
well. The thing about John is he didn't play the he didn't he was here from the beginning. So he understands the old school stuff, the new school stuff, all the evolution of analytics, and obviously, he's a engineer anyway, so it just piqued his whole brain. So he's man, I tell you, man, I don't know, man. If I was a GM or somebody, I'd be hiring John Cho because he actually didn't done it before. I mean, he didn't sit with coaches, and this coach and that coach and all, and he just absorbs information, man. He got a wealth of information that people, and then he's just like unbelievable with the video, the computers, and I mean, he can just do anything, man. Anyway. So he ended up leaving the Rockets. I feel really bad, but he was such an asset for us, man. He's an unbelievable person. So.
Well, I know he's watching. I know he's watching the show for sure, and he will. I'll be getting a text here from him shortly, I'm sure, about us mentioning him. So, BJ, I appreciate it, man. I'd love to have you back on. We can do this again. We can just sit here and talk basketball. I don't care. You got a great background behind you. I guess it's nice this time of year down in Houston.
Yeah, man. Maybe next time I could tell you some other stories about some players that some underdog guys that I really believed in and ended up pretty good. But you
Well,
know, a
give me
lot of
one
that
right
stuff
now.
is
I want to hear one right now. I got time. You got some time? I got a little time.
Ish Smith. Ish Smith was one of them for sure.
All right. Let me hear about. Let's talk about it.
So Ish was a guy. Uh, I saw Ish. Uh, it's a crazy story, but this is how it goes sometimes, and sometimes it's the luck of the draw or whatever. So I see Ish. I go to Florida State, and I'm watching Florida State, and Ish comes on the set, and he is just giving Florida State their blues. It was He was so fast. He was so quick. They had no answer for this guy. It was so crazy. So I come back. He was a young guy. He wasn't really on the radar a lot, and so I come back, and so I end up watching the whole year. So the next year comes up. The next year comes up. So Ish he ends up having this accident with his thumb, and it never got reported. Nobody ever knew his right thumb kind of came out of socket or something, got it messed it up. So nobody ever reported it, and I think he maybe taped it up and just kept playing or whatever he did. I don't know what he did, but so it messed up his shot. So the time I was watching this, he was shooting the ball so well, had a great stroke and whatever. Then he started becoming a senior, and you know his coach died. So you know they had a really good team that year. They probably should have been in somewhere in the Final Four. But his coach had passed away, and Gatto started coaching, and so I couldn't understand why he couldn't shoot the ball no more. I was just baffled. So he comes in, and we finally get him in for a workout. And great kid, he's so fast, just so unbelievable. So I think we shake hands or whatever, and I'm just watching, and I'm looking at his thumb. So his right thumb has got like a little knot in the joint, and it's kind of hanging a little bit. And I'm like, Ish, uh, what is going on? He's like, man, I messed up my thumb, but we didn't really tell nobody. And yeah, it just messed up my shot because I really can't hold the ball. And Ish is going so fast. A lot of shit got to go right when you're going that fast. I mean, when you play like Ish, things got to go. It's like natural instinct. So, but anyway, he was still so fast and so quick. He could just, do the game. And I think my guys in the office, they used to tease me about Ish all the time. I think I wore him out about Ish because he's just a guy that I really believed in. Aaron Brooks was another guy that I really believed in because during that time we were just about to start shooting threes. And I don't know if you saw Aaron Brooks back in those days. They had him and a little guard named Porter. They shot a lot of threes. I mean, but they had a little backcourt. So
I remember Aaron
and then
Brooks for
Aaron
sure.
could. Oh man, Aaron was shooting that thing from like way back from the NBA line. And I don't even know if Aaron even actually knew what he was doing. He was just balling. And then the other thing is he could get to the rack and he could finish. He got big hands. And so I remember doing the draft. We were looking at all these guys on the list. And anyway, so I was like, hey, man, this guy right here, he can do all that. He's just a little smaller, but he's way quicker and way more athletic. So one of our analytics guys, I think Sam Hinkie, which was Sam at the time, I think Sam started looking at some stuff and put him on the board, and he was like, "Damn, all right." So anyway, we got lucky and drafted him. We just got lucky, man. I mean, because people, that's one of the things I think one of the times the analytics helped us a lot early on with Aaron Brooks for sure. So his stuff came out pretty good, and his range and his shooting range was freaking unbelievable, man, unbelievable. So. But as it goes, the money and a whole lot of other stuff. Darvin Ham is another guy who I personally trained back then because I was doing some agent work before I became a scout, and I worked out I trained my own guys. So he was another guy a lot of people didn't really believe in, but he's another guy who had so much heart, Jamie, and he was so tough. I was like, man, Darvin, nobody's gonna play harder than you, man. You're gonna be fine, man. So I brought him down and trained him a little bit. Just got him in great shape, and we've always had a personal relationship. But then his whole career just took off. just he's just one of those kind of people. Catino Mobley was another guy that we were very, very fond of. A lot of people didn't think at the time, they didn't really know what he was or what he could do. Uh, I'll tell you a funny story. I went to see Dennis Lindsay, and I were kind of had him on the radar a little bit. So I go to the tournament and I watch him playing. So I'm sitting beside another scout, and he's up there watching somebody else. So I'm sitting beside the guy. He's a little older, and I say, "What you think about this Catino Mobley guy?" And he just looked at me. He's like, "DJ, to tell you the truth, I have no idea who you're talking about. I just came to see this guy and that guy." And it's just funny, Jamie, how this stuff goes about people watching, and and then another thing is your team. Some people can fit your team, and other people just can't play for your team. So it could have been one of the things. But we were looking for some really tough guys to complement some older guys during that draft. And Catino was a tough guy, and we also took Michael Dickerson from Arizona. Both of those guys we got lucky, got those guys doing the draft. But in my whole 20-some years, man, I really hadn't had a lot of high picks. But I think the Rockets as a whole, we've done really, really well with our draft guys, and then our non-draft guys. And then obviously our G League team is one of the best ever, because we really, really do a fantastic job of making guys better. I think we got probably more call-ups than anybody. And it's funny, I always say, man, we always training guys and make them better for somebody else, because at the time we can't get them on our team, or they don't fit, or somebody picks them up. But anyway, it's just, I'm like you, Jamie. It's one of these days, man, you can come hang out with me, or I come to Dallas and we can go scout a game. We can just sit and talk. It'd be good.
Man, I would do anything to have an opportunity to sit and watch basketball and ask questions with somebody who can answer my questions as to, hey, what did I just see, or what am I looking at, or does my opinion matter to you at all?
Okay, that's the deal. Next time I come to Dallas and go see SMU or somebody in the area, me and you going to the game.
And compare notes. Can we compare notes?
We can compare notes. We can just sit there and have a great conversation.
Awesome. I would absolutely love that, BJ. Thank you so much, man. John Cho just texted me, by the way, and says he likes the mustache. He says you got a nice mustache going in Houston.
Oh man, tell John Cho I said give me a call, man. Tell him I need his help. He'll laugh.
Absolutely. Hey, when you come up to Dallas, bring Cho with you, man. That'd be fun. We can all come and hang out and go watch a game. I'd love that, man. Absolutely.
Hey man, I'm gonna get Cho right, man, because he needs to probably promote himself a little bit more, because he's he's a sharp dude, man.
I gotta get him.
He's a really sharp guy.
Man. Absolutely.
And I'm gonna call and tell him he got to get his butt on the show. He got me on the show, so I got to get him on the show.
You got it. I'm going to let him know as well. BJ Johnson, 26-year veteran of being an NBA personnel scout for the Houston Rockets. Things down in Houston, that pool looks nice, man. Enjoy it. Stay safe. Enjoy your family. Make sure that everything, we get the NBA back up and running here pretty soon. And again, go Mavs, but I love the Rockets now too, BJ. I'm a Rockets guy now too, okay? It's friendly.
I can't wait to for the season to start, or to get to a game right now. I need to see a game. I need to see some people run up down the floor.
Yeah, I even miss Russell Westbrook, man.
Yeah, he is, man. It's so funny when you see people from afar, Jamie, but then you see people every day. Man, that dude's athleticism is freaking
just a different kind of guy.
It throws me back. Oh my! It just messes me up. I mean, I done seen a lot of basketball in my time, but man, some of the stuff that he does sometimes, man, it just blows me away.
The way he goes end to end is pretty.
Oh man, it's incredible.
It's pretty impressive, and the anger he plays with.
Even when well, it ain't even a lot of anger. It's more passion than what it is.
There you go.
And he is just a guy. He just has a go switch that's like unbelievable. As you see, sometimes he can jump off of either leg anytime. Don't have to gather. man, he does some stuff. This man, it freaks me out, man. His body, man, is man. His body's unbelievable, man. His speed and his explosiveness, man. Man, this yeah, I always say it's like Muhammad Ali talent. Like, Muhammad Ali was just incredible, and that's Westbrook's one of them kind of guys. He's just born with some incredible shit.
Oh, for sure. Oh man, fun guy to watch for sure. Even though I've never, he's always been with either the Thunder or the Rockets, two teams that have obviously been in the Western Conference for forever. So I got to see him all the time.
Yeah.
Reminds me of he's one of those guys. He's one of those guys that reminds you of you love him if he's on your team, but if he's not on your team,
That's true.
you know exactly what I'm saying. Okay.
Yeah, Charles Barkley used to be the same.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I remember I watched a game at Reunion Arena when he was with the 76ers, and I was a little kid, and he was a dog. He was talking trash to everybody. He was just he was that guy that I didn't like him, but I love him now. I love Charles now for sure. For sure.
Yeah, and then actually, off the court, man, he is unbelievable human being. Actually,
Absolutely.
people don't I don't know if they know that or not, but he's an unbelievable guy. Go ahead, do your thing, brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you, my friend. B.J. Johnson of the Houston Rockets, 26 years with the organization as an NBA personnel scout. We'll have him back. This is in the EPLAY Numbers Tell Your Story podcast. I am Jamie Horton. Do want to remind you guys to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, right? EPLAY Basketball, EPLAY Recruiting Analytics. Like and subscribe and comment and be a part of this with us as well. So we've got great content coming up, and we do encourage you to stay with us here on the EPLAY Numbers Tell Your Story podcast. For all of us here at EPLAY, I am Jamie Horton. Until next time.